What do you have to say about today's comments by the NAACP?
What comments?
The press release by Walter White?
He says that the Spell case will show the world that a colored man cannot get a fair trial in the United States of America. Do you agree, Mr. Friedman?
I have nothing to say about
What about
that.
you, Mr. Marshall?
Hasn't it been proven in this courtroom already? How can a man have a fair trial when he's denied counsel of his choice? When the members of his race are eliminated from service on his jury, when fear and bias against his race are the central points of the case against him. In Europe right now, the forces of tyranny have mobilized behind the vision of a so-called master race. And here in America, our differences aren't supposed to matter. Here, we're promised equal protection under the law. Nothing complicated about that. That promise has not been realized, not even close. Not in Birmingham, Alabama, nor in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and certainly not here in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Quiet on the set!
This is Michael Faulkner, and it is showtime at the October 10th, 2017 edition of the Weekly Podioplex, brought to you on the Chronic Rift Network. Sorry for the delay on this one, folks. It has been one hell of a week. This week's birthdays include Matt Damon from the Bourne franchise, young adult author R.L. Stine, Sigourney Weaver, who you know from a ton of stuff, Superman and Legend of Tomorrow, Brandon Routh, enterprising captain and time traveler Scott Bakula, legendary Disney voice actress Jodie Benson, Emily Deschanel from Bones, Michelle Trachtenberg from Buffy, the Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, and Mia Wasikowska from Alice in Wonderland. Starting with the box office report, it was a bit disappointing. At number 10 is Battle of the Sexes, down 4 from 6th. At number 9 is Flatliners, down 4 from 5th. At 8th is Victoria and Abdul, up 3 from 11th with 650 new screens. In 7th is the Lego Ninjago Movie, down 3 from 4th. And finishing out this week's bottom 5 is American Made, down 3 from 3rd. The top 5 this week begin with Kingsman: The Golden Circle, surrendering the throne with $8.7 million toward a new total of $80.5 million. In 4th place is new release My Little Pony: The Movie, premiering to $8.9 million. There's not much to say here aside from an A- cinema score and a 50% critical reception. In 3rd place is last week's runner-up, It, adding $10 million to a total of $305.3 million. Taking over in 2nd is new release The Mountain Between Us, debuting to $10.6 million. This one also picked up an A- cinema score, and critics held to their patterns with a 44% reception. In 1st is Blade Runner 2049, premiering to $32.8 million. That is well below expectations, and much of that is being attributed to 2 reasons. The first is that the movie clocks in at nearly 3 hours long, which limits how many showings could take place against other shorter films. The second is the homework factor. Blade Runner 2049 rested heavily on themes and settings established 35 years ago in the first Blade Runner film, and with the depth of that universe, it's a hard sell for modern audiences. Audiences who did see it gave it an A- cinema score, and critics gave it a solid 89% positive reception. I saw it last weekend and loved it, offering up a 9 out of 10. Now, full disclosure, I love the universe constructed by Ridley Scott nearly 4 decades ago, and I find new things every time I watch the original film. And there's a doctoral thesis in there somewhere. To close out the box office report, let's take a look at the past. 5 years ago in 2012, Taken 2 took number 1 for a second week with $21.9 million. 10 years ago in 2007, Why Did I Get Married won the weekend with $21.4 million. 20 years ago in 1997, Kiss the Girls was the winner for a second week with $11.1 million. 30 years ago in 1987, Fatal Attraction took the title for a 4th week with $10.6 million. And 40 years ago in 1977, Oh God won the box office crown with $3.7 million. The box office premieres for October 13th want to take down the replicants. This week's headliner is Marshall, a biographical drama starring Chadwick Boseman, Josh Gad, and Kate Hudson.
Mr. Spell, I'm Thurgood Marshall with the NAACP. You heard of us?
You a lawyer?
I am. This is Sam Friedman. He's a lawyer, too.
Hey, you can go. Got no money for lawyers.
Anybody ask you for money? Did you rape that woman, Joseph?
No.
Why does she say you did?
I don't know why she's saying that.
She says you raped her and tried to kill her.
She lying.
I'm telling you this up front. The NAACP were not like most lawyers. We only represent innocent people, people accused because of their race. That's our mission. You understand? So I need to know this. Look at me now. Did you do what they said you did?
I never touched that woman.
Okay, Joseph. You got lawyers now.
This is the story of a young Thurgood Marshall, the first African-American Supreme Court justice as he battles through one of his career-defining cases. Marshall is rated PG-13. Number 2 on the list is The Foreigner, an action thriller starring Katie Long, Jackie Chan, and Rufus Jones.
Sit. I'm wearing a bomb. Anyone comes in, I touch the button, and we die. Now, give me the names.
They claim they're the IRA, but I don't know who they really are. I'm doing everything I can to find out who's responsible.
You're lying! Who killed my daughter?
I'm sorry. I truly don't know yet.
A humble businessman with a buried past seeks justice when his daughter is killed in an act of terrorism. A cat and mouse conflict ensues with a government official whose past may hold clues to the killer's identities. The Foreigner is rated R. The third new release is Happy Death Day, a mystery thriller starring Jessica Roth, Ezrael Bossard, and Ruby Modine.
Look, I know this isn't going to make any sense, but I have already lived through this day. Twice.
Tree,
No, believe me, I know it sounds totally crazy, but this is happening to me, I swear to God.
Tree, I'm sure it feels like you're living through...
Okay, you made me a cupcake. For my birthday, right? You're about to give it to me, and then later on tonight there's a surprise party.
Who told you? Was it back
No, nobody told me. That's what I mean. Don't you see? I know what is going to happen before it happens. Lori, somebody's gonna kill me tonight.
A college student relives the day of her murder with both its unexceptional details and terrifying end until she discovers her killer's identity. Think of it as Groundhog Day as a slasher flick. Happy Death Day is rated PG-13. And number 4 on this list is Professor Marston and the Wonder Women, a drama starring Luke Evans, Rebecca Hall, and Bella Heathcote.
A comic book, Bill?
Well, it's perfect. I'm going to inject my ideas right into the thumping heart of America. I mean, I'll get a real artist to draw it properly.
She's an Amazon princess that lives on an island of all women.
Paradise Island.
And a man crash lands on the island.
Yeah, Steve Trevor the spy.
And she wears a burlesque outfit.
Well, it's athletic.
And silver bracelets.
They deflect bullets.
And all her friends and helpers are sorority girls who have spanking parties and everybody fights Nazis and rides in an invisible plane.
Yes. What?
Bill, we love you, truly, so much. But nobody, and I say this with all the compassion and truth in my heart, nobody will ever publish this.
This is the story of psychologist William Moulton Marston, the polyamorous relationship between his wife and his mistress, the creation of his beloved comic book character Wonder Woman, and the controversy the comic generated. Professor Marston and the Wonder Women is rated R. There are 5 titles on this week's limited slate, and you can find those in the show notes. Next up is a look at the home entertainment slate for the week of October 10th, and I'll begin with new release on DVD and Blu-ray, and that list kicks off with Baby Driver, a crime drama starring Ansel Elgort, Lily James, and John Barenthal. A talented young getaway driver relies on the beat of his personal soundtrack to be the best in the game, but after being coerced into working for a crime boss, he must face the music when a doomed heist threatens his life, love, and freedom. Baby Driver is rated R. The other title is The Beguiled, a war drama starring Elle Fanning, Nicole Kidman, and Kirsten Dunst. A Union soldier is held captive in a Confederate girl boarding school and begins to con himself to each of their hearts. The Beguiled is rated R. Swinging by a new release on digital video, I have one title to share, and that one is Batman vs. Two-Face, an animated action comedy starring Adam West, Burt Ward, and William Shatner. Former Gotham City District Attorney Harvey Dent, one side of his face scarred by acid, goes on a crime spree based on the number 2. All of his actions are decided by the flip of a defaced, 2-headed silver dollar. This is the next of the animated series in the continuation of Batman 66, and it is Adam West's final performance. And I'm pretty sure that John will be reviewing this on the Batcave podcast, right here on the Chronograph Network. Batman vs. Two-Face is rated PG. Moving right along to TV on DVD and Blu-ray, we start things there with The Last Kingdom, Season 1 from 2015, starring Alexander Dryman, David Dawson, and Ian Hart. The year is 872, and many of the separate kingdoms of what we now know as England have fallen to the invading Danes, leaving the great kingdom of Wessex standing alone and defiant under the command of King Alfred. Against this turbulent backdrop lives our hero, Uhtred. Born the son of a Saxon nobleman, he is captured by the Danes and raised as one of their own. Forced to choose between the country of his birth and the people of his upbringing, his loyalties are ever tested. What is he, Saxon or Dane? On a quest to reclaim his birthright, Uhtred must tread a dangerous path between both sides if he is to play his part in the birth of a new nation and ultimately recapture his ancestral lands. The second title is a twofer. That one is Reign, Season 4 from 2016, and the complete series spanning 2013 to 2017, starring Adelaide Kane, Megan Follows, and Selena Sinden. Season 4 of Reign finds Mary rising to the challenge, taking back her country and establishing her rule in Scotland, the land of her birth, but a wild nation foreign to her, and now, once again, her home. Even as our canvas expands to welcome a new court in Scotland with new players, including Mary's half-brother James and the men who vie for her hand, the French court grows as well. Catherine gave France many heirs. Too many, as it turns out, and we will meet more of her brood who are amusingly and dangerously at each other's throats. our queens will make wise choices and knowingly brutal sacrifices. Their fates, especially Mary's and Elizabeth's, are not only intertwined, but increasingly inescapable. It is a season of impossibly high stakes, unexpected betrayals, sexual exploits, a royal wedding, a royal birth, and a rising body count, as 3 queens in 3 nations fight for their people, their lives, and their loves. This week's final TV title is The Good Witch, Season 3 from 2016, starring Catherine Bell, Bailey Madison, and James Denton. Middleton gets transformed into a town where it's always the day before Halloween when the author of a series of magic and romance-filled novels comes to Grey House to celebrate the release of her newest book, titled The Enchantress Unites. But it's Cassie who ends up doing the uniting, bringing together the people of Middleton to put on the special event and helping the author find love of her own, while also coming to a special realization about Sam. I'll wrap up the home entertainment slate with Blu-rays from the past, and this week I bring you Miracle on 34th Street. A perennial Christmas favorite from 1947 celebrating 70 wonderful years, starring Maureen O'Hara, Edmund Gwenn, and Natalie Wood. Kris Kringle, unbeknownst to cynical, market-minded adults as the real Santa Claus, is hired to play himself at Macy's department store in New York City. His gentle, joyous spirit and magical powers soon transform those around him, including a little girl and her world-weary mother. Miracle on 34th Street is not rated. After this brief break for about a shameless podcast cross-promotion, the Weekly Podioplex will continue.
Emergency. Batman speaking. Warning all of you to brace yourselves for big news.
The biggest.
Tell them, Robin.
Holy superlatives, Batman. It's really exciting.
Greetings, citizens. Join me, your old bat chum, John S. Drew, on my journey to discover what it is I love about the classic 1966 Batman television series on the Batcave podcast. Each episode, I'm joined by a guest host as we review the classic television series. There's a new episode every 2 weeks. Same bat time, same bat channel on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, or at thebatcavepodcast.com.
Holy memoranda, folks. Make a note not to miss it.
Good thinking, Robin.
And welcome back to the Weekly Podioplex. I'm Denise with your Quick Flicks. Up first, Terminator 6 is a Judgment Day sequel. Movies 3, 4, and 5 are an alternate timeline. Multiverse for the win! James Cameron confirms that Terminator 6 will serve as a direct sequel to his Terminator 2 Judgment Day, ignoring the events of the films that have been released in the years after. Cameron, who directed the first 2 Terminator films, has been absent from the franchise since 1991, but he is making a return for this latest entry into the role as producer while he works on his 4 Fern Gully Avatar sequels. Since first hitting screens in 1984, audiences have taken a few good sucker punches with the Terminator movies, with Cameron rescuing the franchise from the brink of extinction. With a timeline that is possibly going to get more convoluted than a Marvel Civil War run, Cameron has unveiled exactly where 2019's rebooted Terminator 6 will sit in the world of Skynet and Schwarzenegger. Yes, I did in fact have to say that a few times before I got it right. Alliteration is fun. Speaking in an interview with THR, the 63-year-old director confessed that he and co-director Tim Miller had decided to stick with what has worked in the past when it comes to mapping out the future of Terminator. He said, This is a continuation of the story from Terminator 1 and Terminator 2, and we're pretending the other films were a bad dream, or an alternate timeline, which is permissible in our multiverse. This was really driven more by Tim than anybody, surprisingly, because I came in pretty agnostic about where we took it. The only thing I insisted on was that we somehow revamp it and reinvent it for the 21st century. Hopefully that revamping will turn into a solid story that does the first two movies justice and not wind up being a cheap cash-in because Hollywood is desperate for ideas and cash. Also, Tim Miller thinks returning Sarah Connor actor Linda Hamilton could beat up her fellow older action star Liam Neeson. I mean, why was this a contest in the first place? Of course Linda Hamilton could beat up Liam Neeson. She's Sarah freaking Connor. Linda Hamilton first played Sarah Connor in the original 1984 Terminator, which saw her joining forces with a warrior from the future to fend off a cyborg killer sent back in time to prevent her from giving birth to humanity's savior. In Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Connor had evolved from a scrappy survivor to a true cold-blooded warrior, and Hamilton became a female action movie icon in the process. She has not been involved in the Terminator franchise since Judgment Day, and her character has since been handed off to other actors, namely Lena Headey and Emilia Clarke. Speaking to THR, James Cameron and Tim Miller discussed how they came to cast Hamilton in the new Terminator, bringing her back into the role that she made famous. At 61, Hamilton is much older than your typical female action hero, but according to Miller and Cameron, that's actually one of the movie's major selling points. Miller explained the importance of having Hamilton play the role of Connor and gave a clue as to how the character will continue evolving. He said, "As strong a character as she was, as meaningful as she was to gender and to action stars everywhere, I think it's going to make a huge statement to have her be the really seasoned warrior that she's become." I'm down. The original Sarah Connor coming back, let's do it. When is this movie coming out again? Terminator 6 does not have an official release date. Crap. Up next, let's talk about James Cameron standing by his Wonder Woman criticisms. Because I have feelings, you guys! James Cameron has returned to the topic of Wonder Woman, standing by his previous comments about Patty Jenkins' Gal Gadot starring box office smash critical darling of a movie. Cameron previously courted online controversy by calling Wonder Woman a film a step backwards in terms of Hollywood's portrayal of heroic women. James. Last month, Cameron labeled Gadot's Diana Prince as an objectified icon and suggested that his troubled Terminator protagonist, Sarah Connor, is a more progressive female protagonist. James, baby, no! Journalists and fans struck back, as did Jenkins herself. The Wonder Woman director posted a sizable paragraph on Twitter stating, "If women have to always be tough and troubled to be strong, and we aren't free to be multidimensional or celebrate an icon of women everywhere because she is attractive, then we haven't come very far, have we?" Not one to take a punch, Cameron returned to the discussion to stand by his original comments. In a new interview with THR, Cameron touched on many topics, including his busy slate of Avatar sequels and the return of Linda Hamilton's Sarah Connor to the Terminator franchise. But he just can't keep his mouth shut about Wonder Woman. He said, "I'll stand by that, calling Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman an objectified icon. I mean, she was Miss Israel, and she was wearing a kind of bustier costume that was very form-fitting. She's absolutely drop-dead gorgeous. To me, that's not breaking ground. They had Raquel Welch doing stuff like that in the 60s. It was all in a context of talking about why Sarah Connor, what Linda created in 1991, was, if not ahead of its time, at least a breakthrough in its time. I don't think it was really ahead of its time because we're still not giving women these types of roles." THR mentioned Jenkins' statement about female characters not having to be troubled to be strong, and Cameron had a ready response. "Linda looked great in the Terminator films. She just wasn't treated as a sex object. There was nothing sexual about her character. It was about angst. It was about will. It was about determination. She was crazy, she was complicated, she wasn't there to be liked or ogled, but she was central and the audience loved her by the end of the film. So as much as I applaud Patty directing a film and Hollywood letting a woman direct a major action franchise, I don't think there was anything groundbreaking in Wonder Woman." And then he added, "Look, it was probably a little bit simplistic of a remark in my part, and I'm not walking it back, but I will add a little detail to it. Which is, I like the fact that sexually she, Wonder Woman, had the upper hand with a male character, which I thought was fun." Cameron also described Wonder Woman as a good film. James, dude. Okay, see, this is the problem. Actually, no, hold on. There are a lot of problems with this, but I'm gonna break it down to the immediate ones because I only have 7 minutes and I have a lot of feelings on this. 1. On sexual objectification, Sarah Connor and Wonder Woman. Anyone who knows the origin story of Wonder Woman knows that she was conceived from a man with an S&M fetish, and the chains are the only thing that can stop her. James doesn't get to bring the costume into this. Women don't deserve to be judged by the clothes they wear. Wonder Woman was an early feminist icon straight up. It hasn't been until later comic runs that she has been objectified, and what I mean by that is how she is drawn by various artists. You can tell which artist is treating her like a woman and which artist is infantilizing her by the way she's drawn. Pay attention to the mouth, the boobs, the butt, and the eyes and the waist, and then run a comparison. You'll see what I mean. Sarah Connor might not have been objectified outright in the movies, but there was the male gaze, the camera looking her up from foot to head, and the fans did all the objectification you will ever need. I was around in the early 90s, and before I actually understood who Sarah Connor was in relation to the movie, I understood that she was hot and doable, among other things. 2. On the troubled action hero and who gets to play in what sandbox. Okay, here's the thing. There is no right way to be an action hero. There is no master list that you can go down and check off one by one, and after you do that, boom, you have an action hero. No, that's not how any of this works. If a woman kicks butt, fights bad guys, and wields some kind of weapon and is trying to save the world, chances are she's an action hero. That James Cameron puts Sarah Connor up against Diana Prince and says, my action hero is troubled and crazy and tough and yours isn't, so mine is better, is asinine and quite frankly insulting. Diana Prince isn't crazy, but she is strong and brave and loyal, and she kicks a god's butt to save the world. Diana Prince is innocent of the world, and that's what makes her so great. She becomes hard and jaded, but what remains is a woman dedicated to saving mankind from its worst instincts should the need ever arise. She learns a lesson, and that is so powerful in of itself because it takes away the innocence and leaves the hero behind. Sarah Connor is crazy and tough because that's what the Terminator world made her into. She had to be crazy to survive. She also had to bring someone into the world to be its savior, but we're not going to talk about that part because I feel like it would rip a hole bigger than the hole in Stephen Hawking's black hole theory, and James Cameron would fall in screaming. What we are going to focus on is this idea that an action hero has to fit inside an eensy little box, and if they don't, they're not really an action hero because James Cameron is the gatekeeper of action heroes and what he says goes. Just like the words strong female character do not mean what you think they mean, neither does troubled action hero. In a world where we can count on one hand how many action female heroes we have, can we please not hold up one against the other and turn it into a contest? I'll take my Ripley, my Sarah Connor, my Starbuck, and my Diana Prince and love them all equally. Thank you. And that's it for this week's Quick Flicks. I'll see you guys next time on the Weekly Podioplex.
Thank you, Denise. Here we are once again at the end of a new edition of the Weekly Podioplex. If you want to discuss anything you heard on this week's edition, we would love to hear from you. You can surf on over to the Chronic Rift homepage at chronicrift.com and leave an audio message right there on the website using your microphone. You can also write an email or send an MP3 to weeklypodioplex@gmail.com. If 140 or 280 or whatever the character limit is now is more your thing, you can still tweet us on Twitter. The Chronic Rift is chronic_rift. The Weekly Podioplex is Weekly Podioplex. Denise is Riley James Keith. And I am Womprat99, like the creature Luca Bullseye in his T16 in Beggar's Canyon. You can give the Chronic Rift a thumbs up on Stitcher Radio, leave us a review on iTunes, and you can find the Weekly Podioplex and the Chronic Rift on Facebook. The usual disclaimer applies, of course. If you leave us feedback, you may hear your words on a future edition of the Weekly Podioplex. Take a moment, stop on by, and see what other shows the Chronic Rift Network has to offer. We have the Batcave podcast, the OSI Files podcast, the G2V podcast, Generations Geek, presenting the transcription feature, the Dan and Travis Show, the Sci-Fi Diner podcast, Doctor Who and Mr. Drew, the Home Game Show version podcast, and so much more. If you have a Roku player, it's a time machine, because you can find us there on the Chronic Rift's Roku channel, which has episodes of the Chronic Rift's adventures in the 1990s, when it was a public access television show on the New York City airwaves. Those episodes are also available on YouTube. Check us out, and find the culture in pop culture. If you're interested in more of my adventures, take a quick trip to my blog, Creative Criticality, where I'm watching every episode of Doctor Who for the first time from the very beginning of the franchise and reviewing those tales in the Timestamps Project. Right now, the blog is wrapping up the 20th season. In fact, I just published The Five Doctors, the 20th anniversary special, where at least 4 of the Doctors get together. And you can find those reviews at creativecriticality.wordpress.com. You can also find Creative Criticality on Facebook. Denise can also be found on the internet at Accessories Not Included, where she talks about her writing, reviews books, and offers her services as a cover designer. Check her out at accessoriesnotincluded.com. If you decide to pick up any of this week's new releases, Why not do it through our Amazon store? You get the newest entertainment, Amazon's low prices and high-quality service, and each purchase you make at that store supports the Chronic Riff Network. Your support keeps us on the air, and we appreciate your consideration. Look for the links to our best bets and the network store in our show notes, or click the Amazon box on our website. The Weekly Podioplex is a Lucky Shot production and is produced by John S. Drew. On behalf of Denise and John, this is Michael Faulkner. Thanks for listening. Until next time, there are adventures in drama, comedy, and action, worlds to explore in the depths of film. Grab some popcorn, find your favorite seat, and I'll see you at the theater.